Big news from Timcast.com. We're back! Tucker Carlson to stream new show through Twitter, saying the news you consume is a lie. You are being manipulated. You know what? How about we just play the actual clip from Tucker himself? Here we go.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. You often hear people say the news is full of lies, but most of the time that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read the New York Times is in fact true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true. At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated. How does that work? Let's see. If I tell you that a man has been unjustly arrested for armed robbery, that is not, strictly speaking, a lie. He may have been framed. At this point, there's been no trial, so no one can really say. But if I don't mention the fact that the same man has been arrested for the same crime 6 times before, am I really informing you? No, I'm not. I'm misleading you. And that's what the news media are doing in every story that matters, every day of the week, every week of the year. What's it like to work in a system like that? After more than 30 years in the middle of it, we could tell you stories. The best you can hope for in the news business at this point is the freedom to tell the fullest truth that you can. But there are always limits. And you know that if you bump up against those limits often enough, you will be fired for it. That's not a guess. It's guaranteed. Every person who works in English language media understands that. The rule of what you can't say defines everything. It's filthy, really, and it's utterly corrupting. You can't have a free society if people aren't allowed to say what they think is true. Speech is the fundamental prerequisite for democracy. That's why it's enshrined in the first of our constitutional amendments. Amazingly, as of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter, where we are now. Twitter has long served as the place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter is not a partisan site. Everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. And yet, for the most part, the news that you see analyzed on Twitter comes from media organizations that are themselves thinly disguised propaganda outlets. You see it on cable news, you talk about it on Twitter. The result may feel like a debate, but actually the gatekeepers are still in charge. We think that's a bad system. We know exactly how it works, and we're sick of it. Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We'll be bringing some other things too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others. See you soon.
So Elon Musk responded to all the news, saying, on this platform, unlike the one-way street of broadcast, people are able to interact, critique, and refute whatever is said. And of course, anything misleading will get community notes. I also want to be clear that we have not signed a deal of any kind whatsoever. Tucker is subject to the same rules and rewards of all content creators. Rewards mean subscriptions and advertising revenue share coming soon, which is a function of how many people subscribe and the advertising views associated with content. Up that many others, particularly from the left, also choose to be the content creators on this platform. Now, I see what Elon's got going on here. We have not signed a deal of any kind whatsoever. That does not mean they did not shake hands and come to an agreement, because we had this story from Forbes, Elon Musk talking with Tucker Carlson about working together. I don't believe that Tucker Carlson would walk away from launching his own network and making 100 million plus per year on subscriptions unless there was some kind of deal in place, be it verbal, not a contractual agreement.
I imagine that there is probably some kind of deal in that, as they said, there's going to be the subscriptions and stuff like that. And I imagine that Elon essentially went to Tucker and said, look, the money's there, blah, blah, blah. We'll make sure that you get the reach. You have this many, et cetera. This is how it'll work with the way that we're thinking. And so I can assure you that, give you my word that this will be. And it may be just a handshake deal, like you said. But it doesn't see, I don't see, I don't think that he'll have a problem coming up with money. He's the
I just think that there's no reason for anyone to do a show on Twitter unless Elon makes a guarantee. YouTube subsidizes content.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think that there's a lot of I think there's more people that are like you, that the money isn't, the issue. Like Tucker doesn't, I was talking about this with Michael downstairs. The money, like Tucker's already rich. He's already going to make, never going to have to worry about money in his life. So I just feel like he's looking for reach and for probably security. And I think that the money is a secondary thing. I mean, it's not like you care about it,
I agree, but I mean, money is secondary. You want to do something good. You want to say what you have to say, and you want people to see it. But money is like the oil for the machine.
Fair.
So I don't think Tucker's going to want to look at his net worth, his bank account, his assets, and be like, let's liquidate this property so that I can do a show. He's probably going to be like, how can I fund a show? How can I make money? That being said, it may be that Elon simply went to Tucker and said, you do your show on Twitter. We absorb all of the costs of broadcast, hosting, server, and everything. And so Tucker might be thinking about it like, okay, we'll do subscriptions. We'll make money on Twitter that way. Elon says they only take 10%. So what am I really losing? And they're gonna cover all the hosting costs. Done.
I just imagine that there's plenty of money to be made and plenty of avenues for him to make money, and that the essentially the teaming up of the two kind of biggest free speech names going really puts pressure on all of the other media. Like this is going to be the most pressure that all of the other media outlets have probably ever experienced.
It could be paradigm shifting. I mean, one, we don't know what the restrictions that Tucker has on him that would maybe prevent him from discussing the money and revenues from this sort of content. But look at what happened with Musk himself. He put a portion of his fortune up to try to do something good with Twitter because he saw, what was going on with the collusion and the lack of free speech on Twitter. So if we're lucky, we're going to get something similar with Tucker himself where, maybe what Elon is doing with Twitter, they are now trying to do to YouTube and kind of create a new paradigm in the content creator hub.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is more about the conversation that the discourse that's going on, the national discourse, than it is about him being concerned about monetary, how much money he's going to make. Because again, it's already rich, and these guys are the dudes that are out there carrying the torch for actual liberalism in an age when you've got so many progressives that are really authoritarian and really, really strongly looking to, censor speech and say this is outside of the realm of acceptable conversation.
The opportunity right now is for anybody who wants to launch a show needs to launch it on Twitter right now.
100%.
Because what's going to happen is within the next year, Elon is going to be looking at propping up whatever shows and content they have. And what Elon's not going to want to do is start trying to poach outside content because it's very difficult. I would love to have Timcast IRL live every day on Twitter. I've got 1.6 million followers. It would be fantastic. I think we get tremendous reach. It's just difficult to do. And I don't know what the upside is other than just general reach. It's an investment, I understand, but it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. If we invested in multi-streaming, did the show on Twitter, did a live stream or whatever because they have that capability, I don't know what we would get out of it. So Elon, let's say he comes to us and he's like, we want you on Twitter. I'd be like, okay, here's what we need to cover the costs of that, hiring somebody to do it, et cetera, et cetera. If somebody just launches a show on Twitter right now, when Elon is looking for content to put in the suggested feed, it will be you. So that's how it always works. When YouTube first started, there were people who made no money and just did it. And then when YouTube started expanding, they promoted those people. Those people became rich and famous. So I don't know, man. Tucker doesn't need it. I'm wondering what the conversation was. Let me pull up what Forbes had to say. Forbes said that Elon Musk has been talking with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson about possibly working together, according to a new report from Axios. The news comes after Carlson was abruptly pulled off the air by Fox, blah, blah, blah. They said that Axios had learned that Carlson and Elon Musk had a conversation about working together, but didn't discuss specifics. I don't know. I don't know where we go.
I think it's about
here.
Who Tucker is as well. It's a big signpost, who Tucker is, and him coming here. It's definitely him, his face, and a new turning point for Twitter. So that's pretty cool convergence right there.
But is this going to drive the left off of Twitter into places like Blue Sky or Mastodon or something? Because they're already attacking Twitter for, you're going to host Tucker. They're already attacking Twitter, saying you're going to host Tucker Carlson.
It is interesting. He even says that. I hope that many others, particularly on the left, will make some content.
It's just, look, man, Elon's late to the party. I'm glad he's at the party, but he's late to the party. He posts that meme of, the left moving further and further left, and then makes a moderate right wing. And it's like, bro, that was 10 years ago. That happened 10 years ago, and you got to the party like 2 years ago.
We're all so early though, Tim. Like people that are plugged in are extremely early. And normies are just catching wind of this. And I think that, the whole COVID thing is, I mean, I don't want to, I'm a little hesitant to say this, but actually I'll say it like this. One of the benefits, one of the silver linings of COVID was it woke people up to the control of the narrative from the left and from the government, and it made people realize that the government was really interested in censoring and really interested in controlling what is and isn't allowed to be said. So I understand your frustration. I just feel like this is
I'm not frustrated.
Well, I mean, I understand your point, but I just think that this is really, we're so ahead of the curve. And
I'm just saying, Elon, it's wishful thinking. Elon, I think doesn't understand. He understands a little bit, but he's new to this. The left is a cult.
Yes.
We had Lance from the Surfs on this show who admitted, I asked him, okay, earmuffs for your kids. I'll keep it family friendly to the best of my abilities. I said, if you went into MGM National Harbor, it's just south of DC, it's this big shopping center casino, and loudly proclaimed what you previously said, and what did he say? Let's just put it this way. He claimed that if a male engaged in adult activities with a biological male who was trans, it wasn't in fact gay. He said it in a different way. The
much more graphic.
Much more graphic
description.
And I said, if you ask the average person, would they agree with you? He said, no, of course not. I'm like, you're in a cult. If you believe so strongly in this worldview and no one agrees with you at all, like the majority of the world, you are the odd person out. You are on the wrong side of history. And so with that being said, I think Elon doesn't understand the extent to which the left is in a cult and unwilling to engage and willing to burn things down for their cult.
Well, I mean, there's definitely truth in that. I'll also add this, though. I think there is some fear that people are, expressing here about the potential for left-wing people to leave the platform. I think a lot of people who are true believers or pretty far to the left would leave. Your average, normal, run-of-the-mill left-wing person probably would not. And part of the reason these platforms were able to get away with censoring conservatives for so long is because they weren't all that afraid of sort of a small contingent of conservatives really far to the right leaving. And so I think based on those same market principles, there's not that much of a risk of people on the left leaving.
Well, I don't care if they leave. I'm not saying that they should stay. I think this is a good thing because I think here's what's going to happen.
My point is
taking Twitter was one of the most powerful things you could do in the culture war. Elon Musk nailed that.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're saying, the left dominates the space, and so default liberals fall in line.
Yeah.
But now with the left fleeing, it's actually a good thing because that means the popular accounts, the big accounts, the accounts that people want to aspire to be like are going to be more moderate to right leaning, and that means regular people who are on the platform are going to see more of that.
Exactly. Okay, I just want to mention one more thing. Twitter does lean to the left, but it's not, like Tumblr was, where it's just overwhelmingly left-leaning, and anyone who goes there can sniff that out immediately and disregard most of what they're seeing. It's deceptive because it almost seems more moderate, even though traditionally the user base has been more left-wing, but that's been part of why it's been so powerful as a tool for framing the narrative on the part of the left. People get the feeling it's unbiased when it is really center-left, but...
I was going to say, I think there is something to be said about maintaining the olive branch to people who are reasonable and sending the incentives against the unreasonable people. We want them to leave so that we can have legitimate conversation. But then, you've got people out there like RFK Jr. He's on the left, and I think, he's got some good ideas, and he seems like somebody who doesn't hate us. I don't agree with him on gun control and stuff like that, but he seems like somebody who doesn't hate us. You've had Destiny on this show. He's at least willing to engage. I don't agree with him on everything, but he's at least willing to engage and have the conversation. You've got the Jimmy Dores of the world, and you've got the walk away movement where there is some level of disgust with the cult mentality and all of that. So I think there's something to be said about the olive branch.
The people you're naming are people who agree on facts. Jimmy Dore, he's a self-proclaimed socialist. But he's like, here's what the news said, and here's what we fact checked, and here's what we found out to be true. He can bring that to us, and we say, yes, you are correct. We've analyzed the facts and we agree on the facts. Then our opinions differ, and we're like, well, that's okay. All of our opinions differ.
Right.
You get someone like Destiny, who comes out and says Kyle Rittenhouse was acting in self-defense, and the left comes after him. He may be a liberal, but he's like, hey, I watched it. I'm not going to lie. This is what happened. And then the cult are the people who are just outright lying. Mm-hmm. They will say whatever needs to be said, even if it doesn't make sense. For instance, you might have some leftists say something like a woman should be allowed to abort her child at any point because it's part of her body, but she shouldn't be allowed to do meth because that would intentionally kill the baby, which is just confusing because it's contradictory in itself. So that to me is a cult member.
Yeah, I think without the olive branch to reasonable people, you run the risk of doing the same thing that's done to the right, where like, you know, that meme where like the guy is pushed from the left and they're like, oh, are you okay? Why are you associating with the right? I think if we don't have that, and it's got to be less about ideas or even political philosophy, and more about character, you know, and people who are just reasonable.
I think there's a lot of substance to that, because one of the things that I've experienced is just in my life, it has happened to be that when I interact with people on the left, I have felt like they're exclusionary. And this is anecdotal. I know I understand that, but like if you're not welcoming, you're not going to get anybody on your side. Like when All That Remains got our start, the blogs that were giving me the most crap were the ones that were on the left. So like I'm not going to feel any kind of sympathetic, any kind of sympathy towards people that are on the left when all the people that are attacking me are from the left. You have to leave the door open.
And there's going to be a left wing,
yes.
Right? Like no matter what, like unless you can somehow like obliterate the connection between personality type and political association, there is going to be a left wing. So I think you want to promote a left wing that, yeah.
Is Jimmy Dore left wing? If you ask the quote unquote left, they'll say, no, he's far right. That's insane.
Yes.
And that's where we're at. So there is right now in this country, there are actual left and actual right who are friends and having good conversations and trying to move things forward. And that would be like the Jimmy Dore and the Tucker Carlson having that conversation. But what we refer to now as left and right isn't even political. It's cult and not cult.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Dore is probably the best example of that. And then to a lesser degree, someone like me, right? Like moderate centrist, what they call right wing. Well, the left will make arguments like, yeah, but look at this. He voted for Trump. I'm like, yeah, I did vote for Trump. Jimmy Dore does not like Donald Trump, but they still call right wing. That is insane.
You voted for Trump, and like 15 years ago, Trump was a Democrat.
That's
and
right.
People on the right would have said he's on the left.
That's their argument. The argument from the left is when people say, I'm just a regular person from 10 years ago, they say that's what conservative means. They were like, the argument the left makes is, if someone from 1950 in 1970 said, I'm not conservative, I'm just a regular person from 15 years ago, they would say, yeah, before civil rights. Like, yes, so you are right wing, you are conservative because you're not with the times or whatever. The difference today is left and right in the sense of our politics, cultural, traditional versus economic, communal systems or capital systems mean absolutely nothing. Jimmy Dore, a socialist, is right wing. You can deviate from leftist economic policy, but you can't deviate from social cult policy, even if it doesn't make sense. Like when that dude said, you can take meth, or a woman can't take meth because it'll kill the baby, but you can't kill the baby.
Yeah.
Like it literally makes no sense. As long as he is saying words that align with the quote unquote left, the cult, then you're left. That's it. Even I think the funny thing about the whole debate is Seamus is over here, as he often is, as the pro-life guy. He's not even saying anything. And me, the traditional pro-choice guy, arguing with the pro-abortion guy, and he's calling me pro-life right wing.
Well, forced birther. And part of it was, I didn't, it's so stupid. I didn't want to dogpile him, but there were one or two moments. I mean, there were a few moments where he said things that were blatantly factually incorrect. But then when he was saying things that were blatantly factually incorrect related to healthcare for children and trying to justify mutilation, I had to jump in. I mean, but I needed to correct the nonsense he was saying.
No.
But yeah, part of why I was remaining quiet wasn't because I was like, oh man, like obviously, I believe this is an incredibly important issue. It's incredibly important to me, but I thought they're having the discussion. It would be in bad taste if this was a jumping.
I'm not trying to rehash that episode.
No,
I'm just trying to point out that I'm clearly at odds with you on a lot of these issues as someone who's like moderate, slightly left-leaning on the issue. But to their perspective, He's equating you and I together, despite the fact that we disagree.
Which is a huge compliment for you. You know what I mean?
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.